Wisalemba muendinga pandiame kuniyaya. Wisalemba muendinga pandiame kuniyaya. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Tatas Cave podcast. This is season 2, episode 1, and I have a few subjects to discuss today. But before we get into that, I just wanted to welcome everyone back for season 2. Um, the original return date was actually meant to be on the year opening ceremony, January 4th, but there were some delays, spiritual ceremonies and whatnot, that actually prevented that from happening. So we're running late, we're running behind schedule, but we are back. The schedule moving forward is supposed to be once a month. Usually, the first weekend of the month, we're going to be dropping a new episode for the foreseeable future. And I did want to touch on, for this season, I would like to see some guests actually come into the podcast and we can talk. But if it's not possible, it's totally okay. We could just go with it. We got our own subjects to discuss. So speaking of subjects, let's go ahead and get into it. The very first subject that I wanted to touch on was false teachers, people that really have no business teaching. And what I mean by that is people that were not themselves trained, taught, or just don't have the qualifications. Teaching is something from an ATR perspective that is definitely the role of an elder. In other words, the teacher is the elder and the elder is the teacher. There is nobody else that is the teacher. Period. Absolutely not. When you look at ATRs, this is the common recurring theme over and over again. Who you learn from is your elder. You do not learn from random people. But with the rise of socials and the internet and everything, we see people positioning themselves to teach. And they'll sit there and they make, posts saying the most things, doing the most, establishing some sort of like an authority, a perceived authority, because they never claim to be an elder, but they'll teach like if they were, and they'll speak very confidently, and they'll teach this and they'll teach that, and teaching this and teaching that, and share this with that person, that with this person, and that is the role of an elder. And so when they do this, what they're doing is they're breaking the formalities. Those are taboos. Those are protocols within traditions that are being broken. Nobody teaches traditions but the elders of those traditions. And when they do, those teachings are they mean something when it works that way. When you go through the proper protocols. When you don't go through the proper protocols, these false teachers can lead you to very dangerous places, very dangerous ideologies. All these things that should not happen, should not exist, are then happening and existing. And then it gets even worse when you think about it, because then there is no safety here, right? So, say for example, if an elder isn't the one teaching you, then you can arrive at the conclusion that jumping off a cliff is a spiritual practice. And there is no elder to walk you off that ledge and tell you, hey, no, this is not right. This is not part of our tradition, because it's Joe Blow on social media. There is no correction. There is no verification of the correctness of this information. Another point that I wanted to touch on was people are just reading things online, and from there they present it as if they knew it. They speak with this confidence like if they knew it. So someone that is brand new saw someone else make a post about how to light a candle, and now they read this post. Now they consider themselves subject matter experts on how to light a candle, right? Now they teach others how to light a candle. And now we have several generations or iterations, if you will, of wrong. Just loud, proud, and wrong. Just wrong. Everybody's wrong. And everybody's citing everybody. So from a scholarly perspective, right, you have 10 citations. It looks valid. It looks real. It looks like it'll work. But from a very realistic and traditional standpoint, all of them are wrong. It's all trash. Throw it all away. Absolutely not. You learn from elders, not from false elders, not from people that are pretending to be elders And you surely do not read things online to then go and teach them. That's just not how this works. Um, these are all very bad things that are destroying traditions. The other thing I wanted to touch is, not everyone is meant to be a teacher. So I touched on this earlier. Teaching is the role of an elder, um, and the role of an elder is teaching. And you have to keep in mind that when we're talking about teaching, right, the way elders teach is the way they were taught to teach. The things that they teach, the curriculum, the body of works that they're teaching, and the order they're teaching it because that's how they were taught, right? So when you take that part away and you have random people reading random things and teaching random things, not only are you heading towards danger because there is no verification whether this is real or not, but you're also breaking the whole body of work. You're breaking the curriculum, and now people are learning things out of order, things that aren't correct. There is no lineage to this, there is no roots, there is no verification that any of this is valid, and even the teaching methods might not even be right. There is no lineage here. So this is not learning tradition, period. This is just learning random facts. And random facts help nobody. All they do is destroy traditions because then people learn random facts and they think that they too know tradition. And then they perpetuate this cycle of saying that they know tradition and so on and so forth. And before you know it, the whole tradition is lost to people that refuse to learn tradition and instead just learned anything from anywhere, and from people online and stuff like this. This is bad. Um, so to that degree, I have been calling these behaviors out for a very long time, and in doing so, I have put quite a target on my back. Right? I've had several people uh, upset. Let's use the word upset. Upset with me for calling out these false teachings. And there's more to it, to the false teaching. There's people not being accountable for their teachings and so on and so forth. But this has been part of my struggle for a very long time. For years, you guys have seen me demanding that everyone be held accountable, not just the ones that committed an atrocity, not just the ones that did the heinous acts, but everyone involved be held accountable. And this has painted a target on my back, right? And I've had several weird, I guess you could say, people step forward and make certain accusations about me. And I've never actually publicly addressed any of these things, but that's because there's no merit to them. I'll be honest with you. There's nothing there. There's just people being people, just weird bullshit. Um, and what I mean by that is, there's an old understanding that, when they can't beat you spiritually with wisdom, and they can't beat you spiritually with spells, and they can't beat you physically with hands, then they resort to beating you by assassinating your character and just making up whatever falsehoods they can in order to tarnish your reputation. And I don't think people understand that, quite frankly, my reputation is something that is very, very volatile, and of critical importance to other people. There are other people that depend on me. And when you tarnish my reputation behind falsities and lies and slanders and stuff like this, you're not just targeting me, you're targeting a lot of people, some of which may feel like they have to do something about it. Me, on the other hand, I am very unbothered and unimpressed by all these false accusations that come forward. I do not care. Build a bridge, get over it, cry me a river. I do not care about false accusations because in the end, time will tell all truths. Just remember this: every time you have heard something about me, years has passed, and it has never come out to be true. It has always ended up being in someone else being salty that they are a reject ranger. They were expelled and or exiled, and they got salty and they wanted to behave like a angry ex-girlfriend. Um, so a lot of the people that have made claims specifically about me have never made them to my face. And I will say that one more time, they have not made those claims to my face. The only time people talk negatively about me is to my back. They will never say it to my face. That should tell you everything you need to know. No one has ever stood to my face and said, hey, you did this and this and this wrong. Not once. Never. It has never occurred. And there's a reason why they wouldn't, because people that know me well enough know that I keep receipts on everything, right? I keep receipts on everything. I keep screenshots. I keep records. I keep everything. So that when people do come with their weird little accusations, well, see, I have receipts. Let's see how far this goes. Um, and this is why no one steps to me with these kind of weird behaviors, but they'll whisper them behind, behind walls in secret chats and stuff like that. Um, there is also, the other thing that it's like some of these people, I don't even know them. It'll be someone that I met one time, or maybe I never even met them at all, and they'll be like, you know what that Tata did? He did a cleanse on me, and I'm like, who is that? I don't even know that person. Who is that person? Why are they saying that they know me? I don't know them. Um, Aside from that, there's also one more thing there. Even the people that at one point were initiated by me, yes, I do have signed NDAs, and I would like to remind them that there is signed non-disclosure agreements. So this Munanso's secrets must be kept secret, or there will be legal actions. And that's just that. That's just on that. So because of this, like there is a lot of nonsense and accusations going on, and people saying the weirdest things and pretending, and saying, oh, this Tata did this Tata did that. Well, if there was any truth, if there was any merit to it, people would stand to my face. If there was any truth, if there was any merit, there would be authorities involved. There would be a whole lot going on, but there isn't. All it is bullshit and gossip from a bunch of people that I may have never known in my life, and some of which I do know, but they were rejected for A or B motive. Some were refusing to follow the rules. Others may have just not been interested and they were removed for their lack of interest. Um, some may have, been disrespectful. There's a bunch of different reasons why someone could be removed from the insult. But all in all, not one of these accusations has ever been true, and no one has ever stood to my face to say this. Um, on top of that, no one has ever actually stood to any of my God kids' faces to tell them your Tata did this, or this. Nope, it's always really weird backroom conversations. So I just wanted to touch on the accusations because I'm really tired. I know that people have been watching for a while. Tata, why do you only have X amount of followers? Why does your platform never grow? But I see other people that are, they're new and they're false teachers. They don't really have the qualifications to teach, but their platforms grow, through the roof exponentially. The answer is because all the false teachers band together. This one knows that they should not be teaching anyone nothing because they themselves don't know nothing, but they see someone else doing it and they have a large following. And now we're going to band together, and now we're going to create a sales funnel where I bounce my followers off of you, you bounce your followers off of me. We're going to sit here and pretend like we should be teaching something because we know something, but we don't really know nothing. And we know that each other don't know nothing, but we don't care. We're going to do this and bounce followers off of each other. So they'll grow their followings. But, me on the other hand, because there has been a lot of false accusations, and I suspect it comes from that direction as well, from the folks that I'm fighting against and calling out for being false, for being fraudulent. A lot of them are telling their followers, hey, no, don't listen to that Tata. He does this, he does that. So because of this, my platform doesn't grow too much at any one given point in time. I just I just wanted to touch on that because the platform, it's always going to be what it is. Maybe, little by little I'll gain some ground and start growing, but it's not something where I'm going to magically explode and have, 100,000 followers or nothing like that. It's going to be slow growth as people slowly realize that a lot of what they hear about me is all lies. When they start seeing for themselves and they start coming and meeting me in person and shaking my hand and seeing what I'm actually about, that's when you'll see growth. Even then, there's been some folks. There was someone I had that followed me for a while, and they were, very interestingly enough, we never really spoke on a one-on-one level, but they followed me and they did a bunch of like reposts or retweets or whatever you call it. And someone made an accusation, and boom, just like that, they unfollowed me and went and jumped with them, and they started going down the whole weird rabbit hole with them about all this other stuff. Um, let me explain this to y'all in no uncertain terms. I'm not no nothing, no bullshit, no fluffer. I am the Tata. I am the Tata of this household. I'm the one with the ganga. Not my children, not my wife. It's me. That's it. There isn't 5011 gangas in this household. This is not Pokemon. This is Enkisi Malongo. This is Palo Mayombe. This is not Pokemon. We don't collect pots just to have pots, just to have them. This isn't Pokemon. So that rumor that I heard from, a little birdie that I was using my wife and kids' pots, how the hell could I use pots that don't exist? But anyways, um, the other subject that I really wanted to get to. Keep in mind, all this was just the I guess you could say the filler, all the stuff that I wanted to talk on this whole time ever since season one ended. Um, and I always figured when I came back for season two, I'd finally address these things. But here I am, season two, and addressing them. Um, so the actual episode was supposed to be about community. I've seen in recent times the internet is just completely eroding the concept of community and the understanding of community for people all over the world. People are losing sight of what is and is not community. Just because you join the same group, that does not make you a community. No matter what the little website calls it, no matter how many times they could call it a community, that is not a community. A website group is not a community. A chat group is not a community. Please, please, I need you guys to be so for real right now. Community extends much further than that. Community isn't even something where you have a similarity, a commonality between everyone in this group. That is not a community. Um, Stop this. Stop this. We need people to come forward and really reestablish and clearly define what community is. And if no one else is going to do it, then the elders should be the one coming forward and defining what community actually is. Because a lot of these quote unquote communities I'm seeing are nothing more than Mean Girls clubs and stupid little chats, and none of this is amounts to nothing. It's all pointless. It's all useless. Um, so, and it's all based on the internet. The internet is eroding this by calling everything a community. Um, it's all coming from that, and um, as the internet continues to grow, social media continues to gain in popularity, people continue to make more and more content, even the false teachers, and in those, teachings and in those followings, they will continue to say, well, my followers are my community, and make false communities in and of themselves to give people a sense of belonging, to rope them into, doing and saying and behaving however they want. But the truth is, that's not what a community is. A community is a familial, political, and even governing structure of a group of people. And what I mean by that is, it's not just, well, you're short, I'm short. Oh, we're the short community. No. Uh-uh. Um, it's more so along the lines of, hey, I know you. I'm close with you. We have common shared beliefs. We have this strong bond, interpersonal, emotional bond with each other. We really know each other. I would trust you with my house keys. I would trust you in my house if I wasn't home. If one day something happens and my kids needs to be picked up from school, I trust you to pick them up for me. Or if one day I'm not home on time and my kids get home from school, I trust them enough to go to your house and wait for me to get home. This is what a real community is like. This, the bond, the relationship between a group of people that is familial. And even then, when we're talking about governing, they have their own beliefs and their own structures, their own understandings. Like in the old days, you used to mess around and try to rob from a community. The community will seek their own. They will seek their own justice on you. You might could break into someone's house, but before you make it out of here, they're gonna chase you down the street with some sticks, and they're gonna whoop you with these sticks. You're gonna learn. You never gonna rob from this community again. You could go ahead and do that in another one, but you can't do that in this one. Um, these are all things that are parts of what an actual community looks like, and in a spiritual sense, you could see it as uh, a commonality in, I guess you could say, religious belief. So let's say you're all from the same house or you're all practicing palo, even if you're from different houses, but you have this strong bond with each other and this strong trust and love for each other that is like, yeah, that's like my extended family. That is what a community would be like in a spiritual sense. This is not random people from online that you ain't never met and you make a little group and you call it, the long hair community. No, no, this is not this. That's not community. Um, the importance of community, in specifically within traditions, for the record, is the preservation of traditions. You got to remember that a lot of these traditions, they don't just have a spiritual impact; they also have a cultural impact on people. There is a lot of people, I've seen a lot of discussions about, like, well, why would you practice palo if you're not Cuban? Well, that's funny because the answer is actually right there, right on your nose. But if you were an actual teacher, an actual elder, you would know that the answer is right there staring you in the face. And the answer is because palo is not Cuban, palo is African. And so if you are of African descendants and your ancestors were Bakongo, you would practice a Bakongo tradition to remind you of who you are, of who your ancestors were, to reconnect you with them, to give you all these beautiful gifts that they wanted you to have, to teach you all the wisdoms that they couldn't teach you in life. That's why. Um, and so this is something that I see often, but that's the importance of community, right? Community is what keeps all of this together. You have to remember a lot of these oral traditions were oral to keep things private. Um, that was the purpose of being oral, to keep things private. We only relay wisdom and teachings to those of whom we wish to relay these things to. And so in doing that, a lot of our teachings, a lot of our wisdom, a lot of our lineage remains unknown to the world. Um, Community is the structure, I guess you could say, like the framework, and how we knew who learns what and who knows what and who's from where. Um, the history of community is actually something that's very interesting. Because, I've had people ask me about the history of community within a spiritual standpoint. And I will tell you that from a spiritual standpoint, as far as I'm aware, in Nkisi Malongo and Palo Mayombe, the history of community comes far back enough to say that it came from Africa directly. What I mean by that is in Africa, there's a structure um, or an understanding, right, of a family and then a clan and then a tribe and then a nation. Um, so your family, your clan, your tribe. Let's break that down. So you are an individual, you are one person that is a member of your family, and your family is one family that is a member of a clan. There's a series of families that are all grouped together. This would be the predecessor to community. All of these families lived closely and they shared common bonds and love and experiences with each other and trust. And their bond was so strong that they had what is known as a clan. And these families, they were really close. They were everything to each other. This is the primordial example of community, as far as I was taught. Again, if you already have an elder and they've taught you differently, please do follow what your elder taught you. I am telling you what mine taught me, and I am speaking specifically for the purpose of giving an example of what a community was and the history of it. Move forward from this structure of families and clans and tribes, because even the clans, if you think about it, then you have multiple clans, you combine them together, you create a tribe. So even communities had communities within communities. But let's not get into that. The community was basically a bunch of families coming together and creating a clan. This is the historical reference of community that I'm speaking on, within the context of Palo Mayombe and Kisimalongo. These clans were communities, period. This is the historical reference. And fast forward now to modern times, and we're talking about, like, I could go on certain social medias and hit, like, click three things, and there it's a new community, and I could call it whatever, and random people can join it. That's not a community. That violates completely, by definition, by history, by culture, the entirety of the word, of the naming of community. That's not what it is. I could go and find 10 people online that I've never met and say, well, you got big ears. Let's start the big ear community because we all got the same struggle, right? We all got big ears. Yeah, but that's not a community. That's not a community. We might all have the same struggle, but that's not a community. And this is what people are doing. So for the record, this is where we're at with this. The importance of community is to preserve the culture, preserve the history of these traditions. And the history of these communities comes from our familial structures, from our governing structures, how we understood and interacted with each other on grander scales. This was not something that was, oh, for the love of content, for the love of the dollar, none of these things. This was all about us as a people, our love, our bond with each other, our culture, our people, our history, and preservation of it by keeping certain things from certain people and by sharing certain things with certain people, which is something that you see nowadays. They would call that what, an insular family. Um, but this is how our traditions worked for a very long time because they were closed traditions. Um, the future of community, as I see it, because of this modern phrasing, this modern framing of what is and is not a community, I see the future of community being very, very bad. I've discussed several times before, with my god kids and in spaces, which, by the way, I don't like doing, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, spaces. Every time I hop on there, there's always some sort of technical issue involved, and I always end up, having to crash out the space, um, for a more personal experience where you actually get to interact with myself and the god kids and the family and whatnot. It's Discord. We do hold calls there. We do talk. But yeah, getting back to the future of community, um, this is where I have a very negative aspect, a very negative outlook on community in and of itself. I've discussed this with, the fam several times. I believe that in the next 100 to 200 years, African traditional religions will become African mythology. There will be so few people actually practicing traditions and so many speaking of traditions but having no real ceremonies and or backing to these traditions that it'll just be mythology. It's just everyone is just talking about everything, but no one is doing nothing. And even the ones that are doing things, they don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just making things up as they go, and no one is there to stop this. So community is a part of that. I believe that community is one of the cogs in what is going to become African mythology. There's going to be all sorts of African mythology communities, and they the communities will be the fuel on that fire. And what I mean by that is all of these communities are, for lack of better words, they're going to be what breaks these traditions, because these are false communities with false leadership, with false teachers, and nothing is real, nothing is valid. There is no accountability, there is no bonds, there is no relationships, there is no real teaching, there is no verifiable nothing, there is no ceremonies. Everything is just people online just talking to each other and sharing whatever nonsense they read online and pretending to like know better, to one up each other and seem like they are the wisest of the wise. But no one really is about nothing. No one really does nothing. And the ones that do are just making things up as they go. And the communities will be the ones that spark this kind of a behavior. And, it's going to be more and more difficult as this progresses to find real communities, real spiritual communities. When I was a kid, it was a lot easier to find a spiritual community. Now, as an adult, I look around, I don't see very many left of the real communities because they're all being replaced by false communities. And we're still not even talking about like the possibility of real legitimate elders also being at fault for some of these false communities, um, all in the pursuit of the almighty dollar, right? I will initiate anyone, no questions asked, run me my money, and I'll be your elder kind of behavior. But then you paid all this money and all you got was this ceremony, but like, and you talk every now and again with other people, but they're also paid their fee, but no one is really close. There is no bond. All you have is the commonality of you and them all paid this person X amount to be initiated. This is not community. So that's a whole other aspect. And yes, it is going on and it is very prevalent. Um, so in this essence, as I said, like when I was a kid, it was a lot easier to find community. Nowadays, it's a lot more difficult. It is not what it once was. And I believe that as we continue to progress this trend of false teachers and false communities and all this falseness, all this fakeness, everyone wanting to be the one and no one wanting to be real, right? Everyone wants the glamour, the glory, but no one wants to roll up the sleeves and actually be in the trenches. Um, as we progress this, we will see less and less of these communities. So, let's talk about identifying when a community is not for you, right? You would think that this is something that should never need to be discussed, and I have been proven wrong so many times before. There has been so many times that I have, touched on certain subjects, and then, later on, someone will ask me a question that like breaks my mind, because in my head, the only reason I didn't touch on A or B is because I felt like this is such a common thing, or maybe such an easy answer that I shouldn't have to explain it. Um, so, for the sake of not going through that, let's go ahead and talk about identifying when a community is not for you. It's actually very simple. It does not matter what tradition it is. It does not matter what elder it is. It does not matter how many of your friends are a part of it. It does not matter. If you cannot make yourself comfortable and be yourself unapologetically, just be you. Not be more, not try to be the supreme, sorcerer supreme, or none of that other bullshit. Just be you. If you cannot be you within this community, this is not the community for you at all. Um, Now take that and add on the spiritual aspect, right? Like if you are looking into a community, I had someone that is, let's just say, um, celebrity, um, a while back, talk to me about a community they were a part of, and they mentioned to me that well, I became a part of this community, but you know, they blacklisted, like they shamed me for my hoodoo, and I told them, well, that's not the community for you. Again, if you cannot be you, if you cannot be true to yourself and your ancestors within that community, that is not the community for you. In no way, shape, or form. You have to be able to be you unapologetically through and through you. Not doing the most, not, trying to be the sorcerer supreme and conquer nobody else in the community. Absolutely not. Just being yourself. If you cannot just simply be yourself, put the mask down, put all the performances down, and just be you, that's not the community for you. Every time. You have to be able to be comfortable. Otherwise, there's no point in it. Now, when you do find a community where you absolutely can be yourself, you absolutely feel comfortable all the way through, that is your community. Start building these bonds, start working on these relationships. Don't just sit there and be, we all got big noses, so, I'm part of the community now. No, build bonds, build relationships. Talk to people, get to know them, meet them, come over, have a fucking cookout. Look, watch their kids grow, have them watch your kids grow. This is community. Be there when they need you. They'll be there when you need them. This is community. This is your community, um, specifically your community, because you felt comfortable and then you started building the bonds and the relationships. Um, and I say all this to say, like it's this is a simplification for the sake of this episode of this podcast. I don't want this to drag on for hours at a time and whatnot. I want people to understand that there is much more into this than what they think. But these are the basics. These are the basics. If you don't have this, then you don't have community. You don't. You simply do not. If you don't know my kids, you ain't from my community. I don't care. I don't care how much you think you know me. You might DM me every day and I might talk to you every day. I might respond that DM every day. You don't even know my kids? You ain't from my community. You don't know my wife? You ain't from my community. You don't know my family? You not from my community. And this goes back to all those folks out there that was saying that they knew me. You don't know me. You've never met me. Some of you never met me. Some of you met me once and you think you know me. You don't know shit about me. Um, but yeah, so this goes to the subject of community, y'all. It is very, very vital that you pay attention to these patterns. See how the internet is eroding these things. See how these false teachers are eroding these things. Open your eyes, please, before it is too late, before African traditional religions become African mythology. Please open your eyes and realize that you and a lot of your friends are out here supporting, behaving, and backing people that are absolutely destroying the very traditions that you wish to see preserved. Their behaviors are destroying these traditions and the people that are fighting to protect them and preserve them. They are absolutely being the very destruction that you really don't want to see. So I want to specifically thank everyone that hung in there for the whole episode. As I said, I'm kind of rusty, y'all. Don't judge me on this first one. Y'all going to hell if you do. Uh, this is my first one back. Originally, I didn't even know if a season 2 would come. I'll be honest. Season 1 did frustrate me a lot. There was a lot of people saying, "Hey, I love your podcast. I would like to talk to you about it and whatnot." But I was looking at the metrics, seeing who was and was not listening, and there was a lot of people saying that they heard the podcast when they didn't. I don't think they realized I have a dashboard. I could see these things. But yeah, and so it frustrated me to no end that I was putting in all this work to record this podcast, and people were coming up and lying to my face. And if you know me well enough, you know that the worst thing you could do is lie. Don't lie. Just say the truth. Just say it. Hey, listen, I didn't hear the podcast. That's fine. But people were coming up saying, "Yeah, I heard the podcast. It was amazing, and it was really infuriating me." So I ended up pausing season 1, and I didn't know if I would come back for a season 2. But some of my god kids did get on top of my head, and they're like, "Tata, you better go ahead and drop season 2 because we need that expeditiously." Um, so season 2 is here, y'all. Season 2 is here. We are back. We're not gonna worry about the people pretending to listen to the podcast. We're not gonna worry about all these other things. For the record, this is the one and only time I'm gonna touch on the accusations moving forward. I'm not gonna touch on this. I'm just gonna refer people back to this episode because I'm tired of this. It's constant. It's a never-ending loop. Someone will DM me. I'll tell them, "Hey, no, that's not how this works." They get upset. They run along. 2 weeks later, I'm hearing little from the grapevine. They were like, "That Tata gave me a whole ganga, and now my life went to shit." I don't even know you. I wrote you in a DM. What are you talking about? I don't even know who you are. Um, but anyways, this is going to be the only episode of that. Moving forward, we're just going to keep going and keep rolling with these spiritual subjects. Hopefully, we'll get some guests to come in. I'd really love to hear from um, I guess you could say, folks with followings, with platforms, like what is their spiritual experiences, and maybe have some back and forth, maybe some dialogue there. Maybe they could ask some questions about the tradition, and I could ask them questions about their spiritual practices. I'd also like to see some of my God kids. I have amazing God kids, y'all. I just want y'all to know this. Um, if you ask me, I have the best God kids in the world, but I'm sure every real elder will say the same. Um, but in my opinion, my God kids are the best. My God kids will stand 10 toes down against anything and anyone. My God kids are the number one God kids, if you ask me. I love them to death, every single one of them. Um, but yeah, I'd love to see a few of them come up here on future episodes. But I know that's going to take some getting used to because, recording like this, y'all, is very weird. It is very awkward. You're kind of just talking into, nothingness. And as I said, even I'm a bit rusty, and I did a whole season of it, but I'm getting more comfortable. But yeah, I could only imagine that this would be really weird and really uncomfortable for them at first. But I'd really love to see it. Um, Also, these group events are like flash events. They're very important, very important to keep the temple running. Please, 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 I highly recommend if you cannot make a donation to get into one of these group events, pass it around, spread it on social media. It is a very big deal. Any amount of help really greatly is appreciated. We do also have readings. It will be definitely linked. Um, and aside from that, I just wanted to thank everyone for making it this far and listening and being supporters this long. I've had some supporters for years now, some real day ones, and I just this episode is about you. This one is for you. This one is for you. The ones that have been around for years. This is my way of saying I love you and I'm back. They can't hold us down for too long now, can they? Anyways, y'all, take care. Appreciate you. Have a good one. Wisalemba muendinga pandia mekuni yaya. Wisalemba muendinga pandia mekuni yaya.